Have you ever wondered why a woman glances at you, holds it for half a second, then looks away as if nothing happened? You feel the sting of curiosity, maybe even excitement, but no explanation ever comes. That single glance sticks in your mind longer than a full conversation would, because deep down, you know it wasn't random. That look was intentional, whether she admits it or not. And here's the truth. Most men miss. Women use glances as silent weapons in the emotional battlefield of attraction. They don't need to say anything. The look itself carries power if you let it. Picture yourself at a coffee shop. You're waiting for your order, scrolling your phone, when suddenly you feel it eyes. You look up, and there she is. For a fraction of a second, she's watching you. But the moment you meet her gaze, she pretends to be absorbed in her drink, her phone, the menu board, anything but you. And you're left asking, was that about me? That split second creates a hook in your mind. You start analyzing. You replay the glance, wondering if you imagined it, wondering if it meant something. That's where the trap begins. Because the more you chase the meaning of the glance, the more you've already given her what she wanted, your attention. This is where most men lose control. They assume the glance is an invitation, a sign they should immediately act, or worse, they build a fantasy around it. But what if I told you sometimes that glance isn't about attraction at all? Sometimes it's a test to see if you'll break your composure, if you'll flinch, if you'll expose your eagerness. Because eagerness is the scent of weakness. And once you give it away, you've lost before the conversation even begins. The psychology is simple but brutal. A glance is deniable. If you call her out on it, she can laugh it off. What I wasn't looking at you, that keeps her power intact. She can throw the hook into the water without risking rejection. If you bite, she can reel you in. If you don't, she loses nothing. This is why so many women glance without explaining themselves. It's free leverage. It's low risk, high reward. And if you're not aware, you become the one stuck obsessing over her subtle cues while she moves on without a second thought. Now let's translate this into field-tested clarity. When you catch a woman glancing at you, your instinct will scream at you to react, smile, approach, acknowledge. That's exactly where you must reverse the script. Your job isn't to rush in. Your job is to hold frame. Indifference is your weapon. When she glances, let her. When she looks away, you don't chase her eyes. Stay grounded in your own world. Because here's the truth if it was real interest. She'll glance again and again. Patterns reveal intent. A single glance means nothing. Repeated glances, combined with open body language, signal genuine attraction. That's when you choose to engage on your terms, not hers. Let's make it tactical. The next time you feel a glance, run this sequence in your mind. Step 1, don't immediately react. Step 2, stay in your space. Give it a few minutes. Step 3, notice if it happens again. If the pattern repeats, you can initiate with calm confidence. A casual line, a subtle remark about the environment, anything natural that doesn't scream, "I've been dying to talk to you." And if the glance was a one-time trick, you've saved yourself from chasing a ghost. The cost of failing here is heavier than most men realize. Every time you chase a glance, you reinforce the habit of over-investing in crumbs of attention. You train yourself to treat microsignals as if they're gold, and women can sense that. They know when a man is hungry for validation, that hunger repels them. But the man who can notice, smile inwardly, and stay detached, that man radiates power, because he isn't shaken by uncertainty. He isn't tricked by deniable cues. He forces her to either step up with clarity or disappear back into the shadows. And in either case, he wins. Remember, these glances are only powerful if you let them live in your mind. Once you see them for what they are, tests, hooks, silent games, you take their teeth away. And when you stop giving away power for free, everything changes. Women start respecting your frame instead of playing with it. They start investing more because they can't toy with your attention the way they do with other men. So let me ask you directly, have you ever been caught replaying a woman's glance in your head for hours after did you ever act on it? Only to feel foolish later. Or worse, did you build a whole fantasy about her interest, only to realize she wasn't even thinking about you? Which one of these scenarios has happened to you before? Share it in the comments, I guarantee you're not alone. You've probably noticed how that single glance can hijack your mind. You walk away from the bar, the cafe, the office lobby, and you keep replaying it. That half second of eye contact lives rent-free in your head, and here's the danger once you start replaying. You're already in her frame. She doesn't even have to say a word, her silence forces you to build the story. Was she interested? Was she judging you? Was she playing? The moment you try to decode it, she's already leading the dance. That's the hidden manipulation most men never see. Let's break down why this works so well. A glance is powerful because it's unfinished. Humans are wired to crave completion. When someone looks at you but refuses to explain, your brain treats it like an unfinished sentence. You want closure. You want the missing piece. That's how she pulls you into her orbit without lifting a finger. You're not addicted to her. You're addicted to the unanswered question she planted in your mind. But here's where it gets darker. Some women use glances not to connect, but to destabilize. Think about the woman at your workplace who gives you random flashes of eye contact, never consistent, never followed up. Or the girl at the gym who glances while you're lifting, then laughs with her friend. It's not always attraction, it's control. She knows that by sending mixed signals, she can keep you second guessing. And a man who second guesses himself is easier to manipulate. He'll hesitate, he'll chase, he'll overthink, all while she sits comfortably in her position of power. So how do you cut through this psychological fog? You learn to separate signal from noise. One glance means nothing. A glance followed by open body language. Her torso angled toward you. Her hair tucked back. A subtle smile that is signal. But a glance followed by coldness, distraction, or inconsistency, that's noise. Your discipline must be to never reward noise with pursuit, because the moment you do, you're teaching yourself to respond to scraps. Men who thrive in dating know this rule. Reward consistency, not confusion. If her glance is part of a pattern of openness, you can move. If it's isolated and ambiguous, you stay unmoved. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. You're refusing to let your emotions be hijacked by uncertainty. That single rule will save you months, even years, of wasted energy. Let me give you a story. A friend of mine once obsessed over a woman in his social circle. She'd glance at him across the table at parties during casual hangouts. Every time, his heart raced. He told himself, she must like me. But weeks passed, and she never initiated, never accepted his subtle invitations, never leaned in. She just kept glancing, enough to keep him hooked. Months later, he discovered she was in a relationship the whole time. The glances were never invitations, they were breadcrumbs, and he followed them into nothing. Do you see the trap? He mistook ambiguity for attraction, and it cost him time, energy, and dignity. So here's the tactical application. You must reframe how you interpret glances. Instead of asking, does she like me? You ask, is she consistent? Instead of chasing the meaning, you test her actions. If the glance is real, it won't vanish when you stay still. It will multiply. She'll show up in your orbit again. She'll make herself noticeable more than once. And only then do you decide to respond. You don't rush. You don't chase. You filter. That's how you stay in control. There's another layer here, what happens inside you when you stop biting the bait. At first, it feels like resistance. Your ego wants to react. Your curiosity wants answers. But when you hold frame and detach, something shifts. You stop being the man who craves closure from women. You become the man who doesn't need closure at all. And that kind of man is rare. That's the man women start respecting without games, because when she can't rattle you with silence, she realizes she has to show up with substance. Every time you resist the urge to chase a glance, you strengthen your internal frame. Every time you withhold reaction, you remind yourself, my attention is valuable. My focus isn't free. That mindset doesn't just protect you, it makes you magnetic. Women can sense when a man is not easily swayed. They feel the gravity of his detachment, and that's when they lean in harder, because they know they can't play with him like they do with everyone else. So let me challenge you. Think back, how many times have you been caught in this cycle of glances and silence? How often have you let your imagination run wild instead of waiting for real consistency? And be honest, have you ever found yourself pursuing someone who never actually gave you anything beyond eye contact? What did it cost you in time, in dignity, in confidence? You know what happens when you start reacting to glances. You train yourself to perform for women. You see her eyes flicker in your direction, and suddenly you shift your posture. You adjust your expression. You start signaling back. You weren't thinking about her a second ago, but now you're orbiting her gravity. And that's the trap she can pull you out of your own frame with nothing more than a look. She didn't earn your attention. She didn't invest. She didn't give you clarity, but she just dictated your behavior. That's how men lose power in silence. Think about it. If she can shift your mood with a glance, what happens when she withdraws? When she stops looking? When she starts ignoring? You'll start craving the glance again like a starving man craves crumbs. You'll try harder to get her eyes back on you, harder to win the attention she gave so cheaply before. That's how manipulation works. The glance was never about connection, it was about creating a hook that makes you chase. And if you're chasing, you're already out of the game. Here's the truth that stings women don't explain their glances because they don't have to. They understand the effect. They know men will overthink it, dissect it, read into it. The silence is part of the weapon. The less she explains, the more you wonder. And the more you wonder, the more you hand over control. This is why you must train yourself to meet glances with calm indifference, not hungry curiosity, because the man who doesn't react owns the frame. The man who doesn't need to know forces her to either step forward or step out. Let me give you a real-world contrast. Two men at a bar. Both catch the same woman glancing. The first guy locks onto it. His eyes linger. He starts smiling, adjusting himself, maybe even trying to catch her gaze again. He's hooked. She knows it. She turns her attention elsewhere, and now he's restless, staring, waiting, hoping she has him on the string. The second guy notices the glance, acknowledges it internally, but stays grounded. He doesn't chase her eyes, doesn't contort himself for validation. He goes back to his drink, his conversation, his world. And guess what? If she's genuinely interested, she'll glance again, harder this time, maybe even approach. If she was just playing, she'll disappear, and he'll never care. Who's stronger? The man who stayed in control. So how do you practice this? It starts with discipline. When you feel that flash of eye contact, your body will want to react. Instead, you pause, you breathe, you keep your movements slow, deliberate. You don't give her the satisfaction of watching you break frame. If you want to return her glance, do it once, calmly, then disengage. No lingering, no chasing. Your eyes say, "I saw you. I'm not pressed." That's the posture of power. The next step is to test with patience. If she glances again, maybe twice more, you know she's investing. That's your green light to initiate. But you do it from choice, not compulsion. You approach because you decided she's worth your time, not because she rattled your composure. The difference is everything. It's the line between a man chasing scraps and a man filtering for value. And let's be brutally honest, most men fail here because they're starved for attention. They've been overlooked for so long that any signal feels like gold. But if you let yourself be ruled by scarcity, you'll accept crumbs forever. You'll mistake scraps for feasts, glances for love, silence for mystery. That mindset keeps you weak. Your job is to flip it. Instead of asking, "Why did she glance at me?" you ask, "Why should I care?" Instead of obsessing, you filter. That's how you train your psychology to stay detached in the face of manipulation. Here's the paradox: when you stop needing meaning from glances, women start giving them with intention. When you no longer bite the bait, they stop using it as a game and start showing interest with clarity. That's when dating shifts from confusion to respect. That's when you stop being a boy waiting for validation and start being a man women have to prove themselves to. So let me put this on you. Be honest, how many times have you caught yourself overreacting to a glance, adjusting yourself like a puppet on invisible strings? Have you ever felt the emptiness after realizing she wasn't actually interested at all, just playing with your focus? And deeper still, are you willing to train yourself to stop chasing crumbs and finally start filtering for consistency? There's something you need to hear, and it might sting at first. Women glance at you without explaining themselves because they want to live rent-free in your head. It's not always malicious, but it's always strategic. That flash of eye contact plants a seed. The silence that follows forces you to water it, and the longer you water it, the more space she occupies in your mind without lifting a finger. You're doing all the work for her, building the fantasy, assigning the meaning, spinning the story. Meanwhile, she's moving on, testing someone else, or simply enjoying the control she holds over your attention. Let's get even sharper. Some women deploy glances as subtle dominance tests. It's not about attraction, it's about power. She looks at you, then denies it, just to see if you'll stumble. She wants to know, will you be thrown off balance? Will you chase her eyes like a dog chasing a dangling bone, or will you remain unmoved, forcing her to reveal her cards? That's why she doesn't explain herself. Explanation removes her leverage. Mystery gives her the edge. And if you've ever lost sleep over a single look, you know how effective that edge can be. This is why you need to train a brutal skill, emotional non-reactivity. When she glances, you don't overvalue it. You don't assume its attraction. You don't give it power by overthinking. You treat it as neutral data, nothing more. Because until she shows consistency, until she invests with words, actions, body language, a glance is just noise. And here's the twist: when you stop reacting, the women who are truly interested won't vanish. They'll double down, they'll lean in harder, make themselves obvious. But the ones who are just toying with you, they'll drift away. And that's exactly what you want. Detachment is the filter that saves you from chasing illusions. Let's put this into practice. Imagine you're at a gym. She glances once while adjusting her weights. Fine. Neutral. She glances again, this time lingering. Her torso angled toward you, not away. That's signal. But if she glances once, then immediately starts scrolling her phone, laughing with her friend, never looking back. That's noise. The man who treats both the same with calm patience wins because he doesn't lose his composure either way. He knows attention is earned, not given away freely because of a flicker of eye contact. Here's another tactical layer: never let her glance dictate your move instantly. Timing is power. If you notice consistency, if she's made herself visible more than once, don't pounce right away. Let it breathe. Stay focused on your world. Then approach when you decide the moment is right. That subtle delay communicates strength. It tells her, I'm not starving for your attention. I saw you, but I choose when and how I engage. That frame makes you the prize, and women feel it. Now let's address the cost of failing here. Every time you overreact to a glance, you reinforce a habit of chasing ambiguity. You become the man who builds castles out of clouds, who invests in nothing, who bleeds energy into illusions. And the women who sense that hunger will keep feeding you crumbs because they know you'll always bite. That cycle drains your confidence, your time, your masculinity. But the man who breaks it, the man who shrugs off uncertainty, he becomes unshakable. He doesn't just protect himself, he elevates himself. The shift is subtle but powerful. You go from being a man who craves explanation to being a man who doesn't need it. From being reactive to being selective. From being tested to being the one who sets the test. That's the transformation glances were designed to prevent. Women who play games don't want men to reach that point of clarity. But once you do, you're untouchable, because no silent glance can control you anymore. So let me turn this back on you. How many times have you wasted days or even weeks thinking about a glance that never led anywhere? How many times have you convinced yourself she was interested, only to realize she just enjoyed the control of your attention? And the hardest question of all, what would your life look like if you stopped letting silent games dictate your emotions, and only invested in women who showed consistent, undeniable interest? You need to understand this: a glance without explanation is not intimacy. It's a spark dangled in front of you, and the more you chase that spark, the more you forget your own fire. Too many men confuse attention with attraction, confusion with chemistry, and that's exactly why women keep using these small, deniable signals. They work. They let her test your strength without risking rejection. She can always retreat behind, I wasn't even looking at you, while you're the one left exposed, over-invested, and off balance. The deeper danger isn't just the glance itself, it's the way it rewires your behavior. You start anticipating it. You walk into a room already scanning, already wondering, already hungry. You don't even realize you're giving away power before she's given you anything real. You become the man who's waiting to be noticed instead of the man who notices. And here's the brutal truth: women sense it. They feel when you're desperate for validation, when you're living in reaction to their cues instead of standing on your own ground. That energy kills respect. It kills attraction. It kills the possibility of being seen as a man she can't control. The fix is ruthless but freeing you. Stop living for explanations. You stop demanding meaning from every glance. You let them come and go like shadows across a wall. If she's truly interested, she won't stay in shadows forever. She'll step forward. She'll find excuses to be near you, to talk to you, to make herself known. Your job isn't to chase signals, it's to filter them. One glance neutral, two glances with openness, potential, silence, and inconsistency. Discard. You hold the standard. You decide who qualifies, not the other way around. And when you do, something powerful happens inside you. The obsession fades. The mind games stop landing. You no longer lie awake wondering why she looked at you, why she turned away, why she didn't explain. because you've stopped needing the answer. You're no longer a man trapped in her mystery. You're a man too focused on his own mission to be shaken by ambiguity. That is where true magnetism is born. A man like that forces women to rise above games if they want his attention, and only the women willing to invest reveal themselves. Let me make this practical. The next time you feel that glance, run this test in your head. Does this demand my energy, or does it deserve my patience? 9 times out of 10, the answer is patience. You wait. You observe. If it repeats, if it grows, if it's backed by action, then you can engage. But until then, you stay calm. You don't let a single second of eye contact bend the spine of your masculinity. Because once you build the habit of restraint, women stop being puzzles you need to solve. They become participants who either qualify or disqualify themselves, and that shift changes everything. It also frees you from one of the worst prisons men live in, the fantasy loop. The glance happens, and suddenly you're imagining conversations, relationships, futures that never exist. That loop drains energy you could use to build your body, your career, your craft, your presence. You trade reality for illusions. And the harsh truth, that illusion doesn't just waste your time, it makes you weaker in front of real women. Because they can sense when a man is lost in fantasy instead of grounded in presence. Break the loop, and you break free. You'll notice something else, too. When you stop reacting, the quality of your interactions with women skyrockets. Because you're no longer the man chasing ghosts, you're the man requiring substance. Women respect that. They lean in because they know they can't control you with crumbs. They either show real desire or they disappear, and either way, you win. That's the discipline that turns glances from weapons into harmless flickers. That's the posture that protects your dignity. So let me put the mirror back on you. Have you ever built entire fantasies around a glance, only to realize she never even cared? How much of your energy has been lost to women who were only half present, who enjoyed the power of ambiguity but never gave you clarity? And here's the challenge: are you ready to cut the cord, to stop feeding illusions, and to demand real investment before you ever give your attention away again? She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.